Hello, in this tutorial I'll cover a few essential skills that will have you up and running in Lightroom in no time at all and creating effects just like this. To begin with, I'll cover importing files, adding keywords and rating your images in the Lightroom library module, and then we'll move on to the fun stuff which you'll find in the develop module. I'll show you how you can boost your images with a few quick tonal tweaks, how to paint in selective adjustments with the adjustment brush, experiment with different effects using inbuilt presets, and even batch process a group of images at once. There's lots to cover, so let's get cracking. So here we are in Lightroom's library module. You can find a list of modules at the top here, and I'm going to go down here and click import, and then I can use the source panel on the left here to navigate to my files, which are in this folder here, and I need to make sure I have check all selected, and then I can go to the keyword option over here, and I can add keywords when I initially import files into Lightroom. And if you get into the habit of doing this is going to save you a lot of time in the long run. So I can just enter whatever terms I like. So I could put model, I could put the name of the model, I could put portrait perhaps, and studio, and whatever other keywords I like. And this helps later on down the line when you want to find these images amongst your entire image library. So now I'm happy with that. I'm going to click import to bring them into Lightroom. Now we have these different views in the library module: grid view and loop view and compare view. We can flick between them by hitting the shortcuts here: G for grid, E for loop. So I'm going to hit E for loop, and that will bring up my images larger, and then I can use the arrow keys on my keyboard to flick through my different images. And I've only got 5 here, but obviously if you're downloading a memory card you'd have lots more to look through. So if you're looking through a whole batch of files, the first thing you're going to want to do is to pick your favorites, and this is really easy to do in the library module. You can simply add a star rating by using the number keys on your keyboard 1 to 5. So if you like an image a little bit, you can give it 1 star. If you like it a lot, you can give it 5 stars, and you can hit 0 to reset it to no stars. So you can flick through your images using the arrow key and then add your star ratings. If you come across an image that is a complete dud like this shot here, I can see it's soft if we zoom in slightly closer, and the expression's also pretty awful. We can just delete it completely, and I'll do that just by hitting delete, and I can choose to either remove it from my library or delete it from disk, and I'm just fine to get rid of it completely because I'm never going to use that image for anything. So now I have my 4 images, and I'm going to give this one 5 stars, and we'll move on. We'll give this one 5, and we'll give this one 5. Now once you've gone through a whole batch of images, the next thing to do is to filter them so you can only see the ones you've star rated. So we can bring up the filter bar here if we go to the view options, and let's just go to show filter bar, and then I can go to attribute and choose to only see the images that I've given 5 stars, and there we go, there's the 3 images that I've starred with 5 stars. So now I can select these 3 images by hitting Command or Control and A. That's Command A on a Mac, Control A on a PC. And I'm going to make a collection from these 3 images. And collections are kind of like iTunes playlists in that they allow you to create groups of images, but we're not actually moving images around. We're not shifting them from one folder to another. We're just creating a collection that will lump them all into one convenient place. So I'm going to click the plus sign here to create a collection, and we'll just call it Sarah Pics, and include selected photos, create. And now you see in my collections panel here how that new collection appears. Now we're ready to start improving these images in the develop module. So I'm going to click develop up here to bring us into the develop module, and this is where the fun begins in terms of making enhancements and improvements, and we can convert to mono, we can do all kinds of things in the develop module. So I'm going to just bring open these 2 panels here to the left and right, and notice how my collections appear in the panel on the left here. And this is why we make collections, because they work throughout all of the different Lightroom modules, so they're useful for every stage of your workflow. Now the first stop for improving tones is the basic panel, which you'll find on the right over here. You can work your way down from the top to improve the tones. So I'm going to start with the temperature slider here. And if I drag this to the left, I can cool the image down. If I drag it to the right, I'll warm the image up. I've got a setting I've already worked out here, so I'm just going to bring it down slightly to cool the image, and also adjust the tint just to give me a slightly more realistic tone. In fact, we'll go somewhere around about there, so -31, -36, and then we'll move on to exposure. I'm just going to up that to around about plus 0.71. We'll also up the contrast slightly to about +10, I think, and we can also use the highlights and the shadow sliders to tease out detail in parts of the tonal range. So I'm just going to up the highlights slightly just to lift the brightest areas. We'll bring that up to about +33, I think, and I'm also just going to up the shadows, and you'll see how that just lifts the darkest areas. So I'll bring that to about +29, and the clarity slider here allows me to add some mid-tone contrast to give my image a bit more punch. So I'm going to just up that slightly to about +17. I'm also going to up vibrance, and this increases the saturation of the less saturated colours, so it's quite useful for portraits because it means we can boost some of the colours without making the reds and the oranges and the yellows that dominate the scene too intense. So I'm going to bring vibrance up to about +36, and I'm happy with that. Now let's move on to this image here, and I'm going to go to the preset panel on the left here, and you'll see we have a set of inbuilt presets that allow me to apply quick effects over my image. You see, if I just hover over these different presets, how I can add different black and white effects, or if I go down here I can choose a few more different black and white effects, and you see in the navigator how we get a good preview of each effect. And we could go perhaps to the color effects and choose from different options here. I'm going to go for cross process 3. Incidentally, if we apply an effect and don't want it, we can always go to the history panel here and undo it just by clicking back through our history states. But I'm going to apply the cross process 3 preset to my image. So there's lots to experiment with the preset panel. Now let's move on to our third image here, and this time I'm going to just improve the tones again in the basic panel. First of all, I'm going to correct the white balance. This time I'm just going to use the white balance tool, so I can click on that and then just click on my background, because I know the background should be neutral, and that has just improved all of my tones by remapping them around that neutral grey background. And then I can go through the sliders again and use them to improve the tones. I could perhaps just up the highlights slightly. We could perhaps just add a touch of clarity, perhaps just up the shadows a little bit until we're happy. In fact, let's just boost the vibrance as well. And now what I'd like to do is to soften the skin, and I can do this by using the adjustment brush, which allows me to paint in selective adjustments. If I click on the brush, you'll see how we get another set of sliders here that closely resemble the sliders in the basic panel below, but these panels are going to work selectively over an area that I paint. Now I can choose to input settings using the sliders here, or I can go to the top here where it says effect, and I can choose from different presets. So I could go for soften skin, and notice how that gives me a negative clarity value. And then I'm just going to zoom in slightly closer. I can just zoom in using the navigator options here, and I'm going to click over the skin to set a pin, and then I can simply paint over the rest of the skin, and I can use the left and right square bracket keys or my mouse wheel to resize my brush as I paint. And you can see how we're able to soften that area with the adjustment brush just by painting in that negative clarity. And we can just move on to the forehead here and soften whatever areas we like. And we can make further adjustments by clicking new. So I can click new, and this time I want to boost the eyes, so I'm going to go to the effect drop down again. This time I'm going to choose iris enhance, and I'm just going to make my brush tip smaller, and then click over the iris and then paint over that area to enhance the iris. And do the same over the other iris there. And if I like, I can tweak these settings, so I could perhaps just up the exposure slightly and perhaps up the clarity and the saturation to make the eyes more intense. So you have complete control over every edit you make in Lightroom. Now I'd also like to apply sharpening to this image, and I'm going to do this at the 1:1 ratio. That just gives me the most accurate view of the image. And then I can go to the eye over here, we'll go to this eye, and then I can go down to my detail panel down here. And this allows me to add sharpening and also to reduce noise. So I'm going to up the sharpening amount to about 50, somewhere around about there. We'll also up the radius just slightly to 1.2, and then we'll go to noise reduction and we'll just up the luminance to about +21 just to get rid of some of that grainy noise, somewhere around about there I think. And now I'm happy with that, so I'm just going to go back out to full screen. Now let's say I want to apply that same sharpening setting to my entire collection of images. I can simply click sync over here, and this will bring up my synchronize settings, and I can choose exactly which settings I want to sync. So I don't want the tone curve or split toning. In fact, I'll go to check none just to get rid of everything, and then I think we'll just check sharpening and hit synchronize. And now we've synchronized our sharpening across our whole batch of images. So that's useful if you want to apply any set of synchronization settings. So that's it. That's how you can apply a range of different effects and settings using the different modules in Lightroom. And I know we've focused on the library and develop modules, but there's plenty more to explore. Now, let's say you want to export these images as JPEGs. You simply need to go to File, Export, and then you can choose from lots of different options to export your images in any format you like. There we go, that's it. Thanks very much for watching.